Welcome to the Wellness Lab Digest, where we help you to absorb powerful, life-changing insights from top wellness experts with our daily, bite-sized wellness podcast summaries. Each episode is packed with distilled, powerful takeaways to boost your health and well-being. To support this podcast, please scroll down on whatever app you're listening on. Ratings and reviews are helpful. Even better, just send the show to a friend. Or check out our sponsors at the bottom of the page, or simply click the Support the Show link.
All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling something I bet all of you listening have some experience with. Alcohol.
It's one of those things everyone thinks they know about.
But this is going to be eye-opening, even if you think you're a pro, trust me.
Oh, yeah.
You guys sent in a video by neuroscientist Andrew Huberman called What Alcohol Does to Your Body, Brain, and Health.
Right.
And let me tell you, he gets into it. We're talking way beyond don't drink and drive stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we're going down to the cellular level, gut bacteria, and how even just a couple drinks a week could, reshape your brain long term.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about alcohol is that it's just so ingrained in our culture.
Totally.
Most people don't really understand what's going on when they drink.
Right.
So we're going to break it all down.
Okay.
Let's start with what it feels like to be drunk. That loosened up feeling, being super chatty.
Yeah, like why does that one friend always turn into a dancing machine after 2 beers?
Well, it all starts with how your body deals with alcohol. When you drink, your body breaks down the ethanol into this thing called acetaldehyde.
Acetaldehyde.
And actually, this stuff, it's toxic. It's actually what's causing you to feel intoxicated.
Well, getting drunk is like low-key poisoning yourself.
Pretty much, yeah. But your body doesn't just stop there. It breaks the acetaldehyde down even further into acetate.
Okay.
Which you can actually use for energy.
Oh, interesting.
But it's that in-between stage, that acetaldehyde phase.
Right.
That's where things get a little messy.
Gotcha. So I'm guessing that's where our brain starts getting affected.
Absolutely. One of the first places alcohol hits is the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain that handles all the decision-making, controls your impulses, all that good stuff.
Okay.
And alcohol basically starts depressing activity in that area.
Oh, I see.
Which explains why you get those lowered inhibitions, the bad decisions.
So that's why people might blurt out things they regret later, or suddenly feel the need to do karaoke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is that this isn't just some temporary thing that wears off after a few hours.
So there are lasting consequences.
There can be. Even if you're just drinking moderately, it can lead to changes in how your brain is wired over time.
Really? Even from a couple drinks a week?
Yeah, essentially the connections between neurons, they're called synapses.
Right.
Those can actually be altered by being exposed to alcohol over and over.
Wow, I had no idea. And is this permanent damage, or can your brain bounce back?
Well, the good news is your brain is pretty amazing at adapting. If you give it a break from the alcohol, those changes can be reversed. The brain can rewire itself.
That's good to know. It's amazing how resilient our brains are.
Oh.
But let's shift gears for a second and talk about mood. We all know alcohol can make you feel good at first, but then later you might feel kind of down or anxious. What's going on there?
That's because alcohol basically tricks our brain chemistry a bit.
Yeah.
See, it boosts the activity of serotonin at first. That's a neurotransmitter that's really important for your mood, for feeling good.
Right.
So you get this initial surge of happiness, like everything is great.
But then, reality hits.
Yeah, exactly. What goes up must come down, right? So after that initial boost, serotonin levels drop pretty dramatically.
Oh, okay.
And that's usually when the negative mood stuff kicks in, the anxiety, that down feeling, maybe even getting irritable.
And I bet that makes people want to drink more, just to try and get that initial good feeling back.
You got it. It's a classic example of alcohol kind of hijacking your reward system, which can lead to some not-so-healthy patterns down the line. But here's the thing. Not everyone experiences this mood roller coaster in the same way.
Oh, so some people react differently.
Right. Some people, especially those who might be predisposed to alcoholism or folks who are already drinking a lot, they actually experience a longer period of feeling alert and energetic when they drink.
So they don't get that crash as quickly.
Exactly. And it seems like this difference is tied to how their bodies handle stress. Specifically, it involves something called the HPA axis.
HPA axis, okay. What exactly is that?
It stands for hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. It's basically this network of glands that controls how your body reacts to stress.
Got it.
It regulates things like cortisol, which is like your main stress hormone.
Okay. So how does alcohol mess with this whole system?
Well, in people who drink chronically, their HPA axis can get out of whack.
Out of whack. How?
It leads to higher baseline levels of cortisol,
Oh.
meaning they actually end up feeling more stressed when they're not drinking.
So it's like their body gets used to having that extra cortisol from the alcohol.
Precisely. And when they take the alcohol away, they experience kind of a withdrawal that makes them feel super stressed and anxious.
Wow, that's really interesting. It seems like there's this theme that's coming up. Alcohol's impact goes way beyond just the immediate effects.
Absolutely. And we haven't even talked about what it does to your gut.
Right. I know alcohol is not exactly friendly to our gut bacteria.
It's true. This is where we get into the gut-liver-brain axis, which is this super fascinating area of research that's showing just how interconnected all these systems really are.
Okay, let's dive into that. What exactly is going on in our gut when we drink?
Well, alcohol can mess with the balance of bacteria in your gut microbiome.
Okay.
That's basically like the community of all these microorganisms that live in your digestive tract.
And those are important for our health.
Huge.
Yeah.
They play a role in digestion, immune function, even your mental health.
Yeah.
But alcohol can throw off that balance, killing off the good bacteria and letting the harmful ones grow.
Oh, no. And I've heard about this leaky gut thing being linked to alcohol. What is that all about?
Leaky gut is where the lining of your intestines gets more permeable, so things that shouldn't be leaking into your bloodstream, they do.
Oh, no.
And alcohol can contribute to that by causing inflammation in your gut.
So, like, it's punching holes in our gut lining.
Maybe not punching holes, but yeah, it makes the lining more permeable, and that leads to problems.
Right. And how does all this tie back to the brain?
That's the crazy part. Signals from your gut can actually travel up to your brain, and they can influence your mood, your behavior, even what you crave.
Wait, are you saying a messed up gut can make you want to drink more?
That's what the research seems to be showing. It creates this vicious cycle where drinking disrupts your gut, which then sends signals to your brain that make you crave more alcohol.
Whoa, that's a pretty messed up loop. It's amazing how connected everything is in our bodies.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And we've only just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to uncover about alcohol's effects.
I can't wait to keep going.
Me too.
All right, so we've been talking about how drinking can really mess with your gut and how that can even make you want to drink more.
It's crazy how it all works.
But, let's talk about that one thing I think we've all experienced after a night of drinking.
You mean the hangover?
The dreaded hangover, yes.
Ah, the hangover. Alcohol's lovely parting gift, a reminder of all the fun you might have had.
And it's not just a headache, right? I feel like my entire body is just like rebelling against me.
Yeah, it really takes you down. Alcohol messes with so many things in your body. And a hangover is what happens when it's all trying to recover.
So, like, what is actually going on in our bodies to make us feel so awful?
Well, one of the main things is that alcohol messes with your sleep. Even if you only have a little, it can really impact your sleep quality. You don't get that good deep sleep or enough REM.
So that thing about a nightcap helping you sleep, totally a myth.
Oh, yeah. You might fall asleep quicker, but the quality of sleep is definitely worse. Plus, remember all that gut disruption we talked about? That's still happening even after you stop drinking, which makes you feel pretty uncomfortable.
Right. And then, of course, there's dehydration. Alcohol makes you pee more, so you get that pounding headache and you feel super thirsty.
Exactly. And you're not just losing water, you're losing electrolytes too.
Like what?
Like sodium, potassium, magnesium. And those are important for your nerves and muscles to work properly.
Ah, okay. So no wonder you feel all shaky and just mentally out of it. So we know what causes a hangover, but how do we get rid of one? Is it true that eating helps sober you up?
Not really. Once you're drunk, eating won't magically fix things. But if you eat while you're drinking or beforehand, it can slow down how quickly your body absorbs the alcohol.
So it's more like damage control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As for curing a hangover, well, there's no magic solution. But there are things that can help. One thing is to try and replenish your gut microbiome. Get those good bacteria back that alcohol kills off.
How do we do that?
Fermented foods can help with that, like kimchi, sauerkraut, yogurt.
Kimchi pancakes for hangovers? I'm in.
Well, it all helps. Another thing that might sound weird but could actually work is cold exposure, like taking a cold shower or even an ice bath if you're feeling brave.
Seriously, an ice bath. That sounds more like punishment than a cure.
I know, it sounds crazy. But research suggests that the shock of cold can help your body clear out the alcohol faster by releasing adrenaline and dopamine. And it might even help boost your mood.
Okay, I might try it, but I don't know about the ice bath. And of course, staying hydrated is super important. Drink lots of water. maybe something with electrolytes to replace what you lost?
Absolutely. So hydrate, help your gut recover, maybe a cold shower. You mentioned something earlier about different types of alcohol causing worse hangovers. What's that about?
Yeah, Huberman talked about that. Is that real?
Yeah, it all has to do with these things called congeners.
Congeners, what are those?
Basically, they're compounds that give different alcohols their specific flavors and smells.
Okay.
But some drinks have a lot more congeners than others, and those can really contribute to those nasty hangover symptoms.
So, like, is it true that sweet drinks give you worse hangovers?
That's kind of a myth. It actually seems like the opposite is true. Brandy, for example, which has a lot of congeners, is known for causing really bad hangovers. But vodka, which has fewer congeners, tends to be a bit easier on you.
Huh, interesting. So what are these congeners doing that makes us feel so bad?
You guessed it, they affect your gut. They mess with the balance of your gut microbiome.
So on top of the alcohol itself damaging your gut, you also have these congeners making things worse.
Exactly. It really shows you how important a healthy gut is when it comes to handling alcohol.
Totally. Okay, so on to another big topic, tolerance. You know, that whole I can hold my liquor thing.
Yeah, but what's actually going on in the brain when you build up a tolerance?
Right. What's happening there?
It comes down to how alcohol interacts with your brain's reward system, specifically with dopamine.
Okay.
At first, alcohol makes your brain release a bunch of dopamine, which gives you that happy feeling. But over time, your brain gets used to all that dopamine from the alcohol.
So you need more and more alcohol to get that same happy feeling.
Right. And on top of that, the negative effects, what Huberman calls the punishment phase, get worse and last longer.
You get less of the good stuff and more of the bad.
Yeah, not a great trade-off. And this can lead to people drinking more and more, trying to chase that feeling, and that can obviously put their health at risk.
Right. So even with something as familiar as alcohol, there's a lot of complicated stuff going on.
Definitely. And we still haven't even talked about some of the long-term health risks of drinking, even if you're not drinking a ton.
Yeah, like that whole debate about red wine being good for you. I'm really curious to hear what the science says about that.
Let's get into that. There's a lot to unpack there when it comes to alcohol and its effects on our bodies and minds.
All right, so we've covered a ton about how alcohol affects our brains and bodies. Like from those immediate effects, like, losing your inhibitions, to those longer-term consequences, like developing a tolerance and potentially damaging your gut.
It's pretty wild.
But before we wrap things up, I've got to ask about something that's been debated forever. Is there any truth to red wine being good for you?
The classic red wine question. It pops up all the time. And it's not really a simple yes or no answer.
Okay.
Red wine has this compound in it called resveratrol.
Resveratrol.
Yeah, and in lab studies, it's been shown to have some antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties.
So is that where that whole heart healthy thing comes from?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Some early research suggested that resveratrol might be good for your heart.
Oh.
And people kind of ran with that, applying it to red wine. But here's the thing. The amount of resveratrol you'd actually need to get those supposed benefits is way more than what you'd find in a normal glass of wine.
So you'd have to drink like a whole bottle to get enough. That doesn't sound very healthy.
Exactly. Plus, all that alcohol would probably cancel out any good the resveratrol might be doing. You always got to weigh the risks and the benefits.
Right, because we've been talking about how even moderate drinking can have negative effects. So is it safe to say the idea of red wine as like a health drink is busted?
Well, some studies have shown that maybe there's a connection between drinking a little red wine and some health benefits. But the evidence isn't really solid.
Okay.
It's definitely not an excuse to go overboard.
So I shouldn't stock up on Cabernet for my health?
Not necessarily. Now, switching gears a bit, we've touched on some of the potential long-term risks. But let's get into specifics. What are some things we should keep in mind, even if we're only drinking moderately?
Well, you mentioned earlier that alcohol can actually shrink our brains. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's not great. Lots of studies have shown a link between drinking and a reduction in brain volume over time.
Even if you're not drinking a lot.
Even then.
Huh. And does that have noticeable effects? Like, could it make you less sharp, affect your memory?
We need more research to really understand what brain shrinkage means in the long run. But it's definitely not a good thing. And there's another big risk that comes with alcohol that we need to talk about. Cancer.
Right. Alcohol has been linked to a higher risk of certain cancers.
Especially breast cancer, right?
Yeah, and the research on that is pretty strong. Studies show over and over that drinking increases the risk of breast cancer, and the more you drink, the higher the risk.
So how much of an increase are we talking?
The data suggests that for every 10 grams of alcohol you drink per day, your risk of breast cancer could go up by 4 to 13%.
Wow, that's a lot. But what does 10 grams actually mean? Like, how much is that?
Well, in the US, a standard drink, like a beer, a glass of wine, or a shot, is about 10 to 12 grams of alcohol.
Oh,
That can be totally different in other parts of the world. Serving sizes and the amount of alcohol in drinks can vary a lot.
so one drink in one country could be totally different from one drink in another.
Yeah, it's important to be aware of that and adjust accordingly. In the end, it's about making choices that are right for you, considering your own risk factors and health goals. This has been so informative. I can't believe how much there is to learn about something that's such a normal part of our culture.
It's amazing, right? When we really understand how alcohol affects us, it helps us make better, more informed choices.
Absolutely. So, to recap, even moderate drinking can have long-term effects on our brains and bodies.
It's true.
It's important to be mindful of those risks whenever we're deciding whether to drink or not.
I think that's the biggest takeaway. Knowing how alcohol affects us empowers us to make the best choices for our health.
Well said. And until next time, happy diving, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Lab Digest. If you receive value from the podcast, I have 3 asks of you. 1, share the show on social media with your friends and tag the show at the Wellness Lab Digest on Instagram. Number 2, please leave a rating and review in whatever app you're listening on. And last but not least, please let me know what topics you would like us to cover in the future. You can contact me at empoweringmen.org/contact. And right now we have a free ebook to get you started on your wellness journey as well. That's empoweringmen.org/contact. To support this podcast, check out our sponsors at the bottom of the page or simply click the Support the Show link.